Comic Book Savant, episode 348.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets mine free. And also, I know that I don't.
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This is officially episode 348, which marks the 11-year anniversary of the podcast. Before I get into what I want to talk about this episode, I want to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. You can find them over at comicspodcast.com. If you like this show and you like listening or watching content related to the comic books or the comic book industry, definitely stop by the Comics Podcast Network over at comicspodcast.com. It's a one-stop shop portal for everything in and related to comics. Again, it is literally hundreds of different shows listed there. So if you like this show and you want more related content, definitely take a moment and stop by the Comics Podcast Network. With that being said, last but not least, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor for this episode, which is InStockTrades.com. One of, if not the best place to go online to get your collected editions. They have discounts up to 35, 42, and for their showcase deals of the week, 50% off. They update it weekly on their homepage at InStockTrades.com. They spotlight anywhere from 5 to 10, sometimes even more books. It varies, that they give you the 50% discount on. If you're a U.S. customer and you spend $50 or more, you even get the extra bonus if you get free shipping within the U.S. as long as you hit that $50 threshold. If you happen to be an international listener and you go to InStockTrades.com and you purchase anything, you still get all the great savings. You just don't get that extra perk for the free shipping. That's only for U.S. customers, but they do have some of the most competitive and cheapest international shipping rates around. So I guarantee you're definitely going to save some money on just in general overall on the books that you're going to pick up. So with that being said, we do know we currently have a contest running. It is in conjunction to the 11-year anniversary. We're giving away 3 gift certificates, a $75, a $50, and a $25 gift certificate to InStockTrades.com. So you'll have a chance to win that and then get some awesome prizes. To register for the contest, it runs to the end of August. All you have to do is go to comicbooksavant.com, go to the Contact Us page, and in that page, you can send an email directly from the website. In the subject line, just put contest. It's 1 entry per listener. And again, at the end of August, I'm going to pick the 3 winners, and I'll do an announcement on the episode thereafter, announcing the 3 winners, and then we'll get you all set up to get those prizes from InStockTrades.com. And I appreciate them tremendously for being such a great partner from very early on in the conception of the show, and they've been on throughout, and they've been a great, not sponsor as much as they've been a partner, because they've gone out of the way to help me by, providing me ways to give back to you guys, being listeners of the show, to give you guys something, back for being so supportive in this endeavor of the show. And that's what this episode is kind of about. I want to kind of take it back to basics, and I want to talk about, I'm going to get a little personal when it comes to myself, maybe more so than I have been, and about the show, where it came from, and where I kind of see it going, and what I need from you guys as listeners and supporters of the show, and to thank a lot of you guys and getting me to this point. And I'm going to try my best to not get emotional in the process of doing this, because I've been through a lot, and some of you guys have been through this. It hasn't been the smoothest journey that I've gone through in doing this show, and I've sacrificed a lot personally. I've gone through a lot emotionally that you guys have been there for and helped me through. You know, I've lost, you know, in the time that I've done the show in the 11 years, I lost the aunt that was like a mother to me. You guys were there. I lost my father, which was my best friend in the world. You guys were there. I went through a divorce. You guys were there. I got remarried. I became a grandfather. You guys have been there through like everything that I've gone through in my life. And at times, you know, again, I'm a one-person podcast. It's not a round table. I can't kind of, you know, bow out. You know, it's like it's me or it's nothing. You know, I've been fortunate in the years that I've done this show that, you know, from you, the audience, a lot has grown. And, you know, over the years back in the good old days on the Comic Geek Speak forum, and I had my whole little section over there, the little Cult of Anubis, as they dubbed it, because my username was Anubis on the Comic Book Savant forums. And the listeners in the very beginning dubbed, I don't know where it came up from, but they dubbed that name for them being fans of the show. And we had our little corner over there, and a lot of great things happen from that experience. And I'm always thankful to the guys over at Comic Geek Speak, and rest in peace, you know, Jamie. I miss you so much. You were a great man, and it was, you know, he lost a bout with breast cancer, which is, I know, it's very rare in men, but he was one of the original guys that were over at Comic Geek Speak, and he passed away. And I became pretty close to him over the time and the functions that I visited, and he passed away some years ago now. And those guys have always been great to me, and they mentored me a lot in the beginning, along with some other people I'm going to mention. One of the main guys, besides Jamie, was Peter Rios. He's no longer with Comic Geek Speak, but he still supports me to this day. He still follows me whenever I do something on social media. He will like me. He follows me on Twitter. You know, I met him. I got plenty of chance to hang out with those guys over the years. I went to different Comic Geek Speak functions, you know, early on, and met those guys, and they mentored me, you know, quite a bit. Not the only person that mentored me, because one of my other biggest influences and mentors, and for me doing a single person podcast actually, is Derek Coward. And I'm going to talk about him quite a bit in a minute. And, but like Peter helped me basically flesh out between him and Derek. And if you don't know Derek Coward, he does Comic Book Noise. He has the Deliberate Noise Network. He's very much an influencer as well in this whole comic book podcasting, and I'm going to get to him, you know, later. But again, I met Peter at Heroes Con. I was supporting, you know, Comic Geek Speak in their earlier years, and they had T-shirts that you could buy to help support them, and you would pick it up at the conventions and stuff like that. And he took some time and sat with me when I was first conceptualizing the show. This was before I ever even put mouth to mic to ever record an episode. You know, because I started this show around summer of 2006, if I remember correctly now. Yeah, because we're 2017, 11 years. I was working on it for months before the first episode was ever recorded. And, you know, my wife at the time had got me an iPod. I had heard about this thing called podcast. It was on iTunes, and I heard someone say, if you look up anything on iTunes, you can find a podcast about it, even if it's needling, you can. And I literally looked up needling, and it was podcast. So I said, oh, great. I love comics. I wonder if I type in comics, what could I find? And I found Comic Geek Speak. I found Comic Book Noise. And it was a few other shows sprinkled around that are not around anymore that I came across. And I think another one that in the early time was like iFanboy. Those were kind of like the big, you know, it was few. It was a handful at the time. Probably, you know, at that point in time, in around 2004 or 5, when I first started listening to these things, It was like early 2005. So this was the very early ages of podcasting. So it might have been, it was less than 20 shows around at that time. And, you know, I listened to, I tried them all out and settled in on Comic Geek Speak and Comic Book Noise were like two of my favorite. And I think I would check out iFanboy, which I liked iFanboy because they even delved into the realm of video even very early on, which was cool because it was like a cheat sheet. I could just watch it. I didn't just have to listen, you know, and it helped me, you know, kind of identify with those guys more because I got a chance to see them. But, you know, podcasting was way different 11 years ago than what it is now. Through talking to Derek, through talking with Peter and the other guys over at Comic Geek Speak, you know, they helped me, you know, kind of formalize what the concept of what Comic Book Savant was going to be. You know, I never thought, and the funniest thing in all of this, you know, I'm a creative at heart. You know, I used to be an artist way back in the day. I loved to draw comic books. As a kid, I used to draw handmade comic books and, you know, and like sell them to people. People would love my artwork. And I would just get the Marvel, the Marvel handbook. They used to come out in issues, the Marvel Universe handbooks that they released them all back in essential collections back in the day. I don't think they do it now anymore. I wish they would. I used to love those books. I wish I could get them digitally because I used to love just going through them. They were just great encyclopedias for comics. And I used to like find the pictures that I liked of characters I liked, and I would look at the picture, draw it. I was never formally, you know, trained in art. I just had a talent for, if I saw it, I could draw it. And I won quite a few art contests and stuff like that. And even as a really young age, I actually, at one point at 11 or 12 years old, I won an internship to work at Marvel that I turned down. My parents were divorced. I had moved because I'm originally from New Haven, Connecticut. We had, right around the time that this happened, I had recently moved from Connecticut to North Carolina, and it was a real culture shock for me. And, you know, I just submitted something I drew in my art class, you know, in school, and I happened to win, and it was, you know, just a little, you know, rinky-dink. I was a kid, you know, I don't know if it would have led to anything, but it meant that I would have to go to Connecticut, and, you know, my dad was still there. You know, and I could, you know, take the train in. Like I had worked it out and had kind of talked with my parents on it. But at that point in time, me and my father had a very tumultuous relationship, and I didn't want to go stay with him to do the internship. Though I love comics, and, you know, at that point as a kid, I thought, you know, I would want to be like a cartoonist or a comic book artist, because I excelled at it, and it was one of the things that I really liked doing was drawing. Like I had a real passion for it. I used to keep sketch pads. I used to draw all the time. And because, you know, my parents divorced when I was super young, like I was like a baby, like young, like 2, 3. I was like a kid. So, you know, by this time, you know, I had a very tumultuous relationship. I was probably around 11 or 12, maybe, when I won this, you know, thing, and I turned it down just because I didn't want to be around my father. So I never did it. I always wonder, you know, in life, when you have opportunities like that. I was a kid, so I didn't know any better. You know, my mom never understood me in general, but she never understood my love for like comics. So she didn't get it. So she wasn't going to force me to be like, you do it. And I didn't really know my father at that point in my life. I didn't know him well, and he didn't know me that well. He was, you know, he provided financially, but just like on a emotional, interpersonal level, we didn't know each other. You know, I was in my 20s before me and my dad forged a relationship, a meaningful relationship. So we just didn't know each other. So he didn't know how important it was to me either. So I didn't have the guidance of a parent saying, no, you're going to do this because you love doing it, and this could be a great opportunity for you. It just kind of fell by the wayside. So later, and I've always stayed in and around comics, and I've told this story before as well, that, as I got older, I got into computers, and I went to college, and, I went to a vocational school for computer networking, IT. I eventually went to community college, got an associate's degree in web design. So as an adult in my lifetime, at the time I was starting the show, that's what I was doing. My 9 to 5 was, doing tech support, building, I had a little side business where I repaired computers. I built custom computers for people. So I'm a techie, but I always loved comics. Comics always stayed in my life, in and around it. And I guess, because I never got into the art side of it, that it just always, I love the pictures, when as a kid with comics, the art is what drew me in. It was way into my mid-20s that I actually started really registering the stories and the writing of comics. It was always the pictures and the artwork as a kid and as a teenager that drew me into kind of like a moth to the flame to the comics. And I always regretted that decision, but I realized that I was a kid and everything happens for a reason. So it just wasn't, I guess, meant for me to be a comic book artist. Maybe I would have become one. I might have not been covering the industry, but a part of the industry. Who knows? Things happen in life, and I've always chalked it up to things happen for a reason. But I feel like in my life, if I have one regret, that's the one regret I have by not doing it. But I was 11, 12 years old. So, hindsight is 20/20 on that. But, later when, podcasting became a thing, I kind of had, gave up the drawing at this point. Again, I'm, deep into my tech, IT, kind of career. And I just wanted an outlet. I was still reading comics, and I was buying comics here and there. In my studies, in going through school, I always did something related to comics. Being a web designer, I had to build a website. I was a fan of Dick Grayson and of Nightwing. The first site I ever built going through school for a school project was a Nightwing site that I just did, for the project. And then, back then, it was a lot of GeoCities and random sites that you could get for free. And this is in the early days of the internet, when the internet first became a thing. I'm talking about first when this was dial-up. Now, this is even years before the podcast even was a thought. I'm going deep on this. That this is in the 90s. So one of the first projects I ever did was a website, and it was a Nightwing fan site. I just did it, put it on a disc so my teacher could see it. It was a project. From that, again, back in the days of dial-ups, it was sites called GeoCities, and these search engines that would give you free pages. So I decided, I really love Nightwing. I'm reading Nightwing. Why don't I do a Nightwing fan site? So it was called The Night As I See It. I know that's corny as all hell. It was. But that was I'm not creative when it comes to that stuff. I'm creative when it comes to doing, but that was the only thing I could think of. I think it was not Night, N-I-T-E. It was Night, like Night, N-I-G-H-T, As I See It, is what the page was. And I did a fan site for Nightwing for quite a few years. Like anything you wanted to know about the Nightwing comic and the Nightwing universe and all that, I did it. I maintained it. But again, the internet was a very different place. Excuse me. I did that for I don't know how many years, and then it eventually parlayed into me getting approached by someone that did a DC Comics review site, and I covered Nightwing in a couple other books. Excuse me. So I did that for a couple of years. And after I stopped doing all that and I got deeper into school in my career, like I was still reading comics, but that stuff kind of died out. And these big outlets came to be that covered that stuff, comic book resources and all that kind of stuff. Those things came and replaced those sites as the internet got, again, this is the very beginning of the internet. This is 5+ so odd years later, 5, 6 years later, the internet's gotten a little bit more sophisticated. So those little fan site things fizzled out, and then we had these more professional sites kind of come take the place of it. And so I stopped doing it. I still was, reading comics and, just working my tech jobs and going to school, learning, but kind of just got out of that scene for a long time. So, fast forward to around 2005, 2006, when I found podcasting, it was like I consumed a lot of different podcasts because I love tech and I love learning. So I just kind of flocked to tech podcasts, comic book podcasts, like movie podcasts, because I love movies and video game stuff like that. Those are the things that I like. Those are the things that I got into. And I decided after listening to a few, man, I think I could do that. And I started reaching out to different podcasters, and that's like, well, how do you go about doing this? And they told me, and Derek especially really helped me a ton on what I need to do. He offered to put the show out for me. So they taught me different stuff. And I was like, I want to learn how to do it. I wanted to learn as much as possible. I was tech savvy, of course, from my background. So I wanted to kind of do it on my own, but he still mentored me. And like I said, Peter helped out a ton. And I came up with the whole concept after, working on it a few months. I probably worked on it about 6 months before I ever recorded, or at least about 6 to 5 months before I ever recorded the first episode of Comic Book Savant. And I took it and hit the ground running. And it was funny because, I was scared as all heck to talk in front of a group of people. I kind of got over it in college, and then some of the jobs I worked in and around that time helped me a little bit, but I was still scared of it. I've gotten better over the years. Can I go talk to a stadium full of thousands of people? No. Can I get in front of a group of 100 people and talk? Maybe. And I won't totally flip out. I've gotten better. This has helped me considerably when it comes to public speaking and all that kind of stuff. But I was totally frightened of it. So I never thought I would even do something along these lines. But I have to give a shout out to my grandmother that had passed many years before. I was really, really close to my grandmother. She was my only living grandparent. My other grandparents passed away when I was a real small baby, or before I was even born. So I only had one living grandparent, which was my mother's mother, which was Ada Jackson. And she always used to say, she was like, you love movies so much, because I used to love watching Siskel and Ebert. And she was like, it's like one day you need to do that. You just love movies so much, you just will watch and watch and watch and watch review shows, and you love watching films and love going to the movies. Is that something that you should do one day? She's always telling me this. I'm talking about I'm an 8-year-old kid. She used to tell me this 6, 7, 8. She always was like, that's something you need to do. That's something you need to do. So when I originally first thought about doing podcasting, the concept was the movie Savant. I got ticked off because when I start putting that idea together, someone already had the moviesavant.com. And I was pissed because I was like, that's what I was going to do. And I was like, because I love movies, and that it always permeated in my head, the things that she said to me about it. So I was like, that's what I'm going to do. If I'm going to do something like podcasting, I'm going to do it about movies. So when that got shot down, I was like, I actually love comics more than I love movies. So why didn't I think about that? And I felt like, it's a lot of people doing it. It might be hard to break into that. But it was like, what else next to movies that so much, just humongous depositories of knowledge about is comics. So I was like, yeah. So what am I going to call it? Because Movie Savant's taken, Comic Book Savant has to be taken. No, it actually wasn't. And a lot of people I learned over the years didn't know what a savant was. I used to have a lot of problems in the very beginning of people pronouncing it, asking me what it meant, and all that other kind of thing. I thought it was, kind of cool, cool name. I didn't think about the practicality of the name, but I just thought it was different and it kind of stood out. So I just rolled with it because the original concept was movie savant. Boom, boom, comic book savant, whatever. It works. And it kind of, that was the base for where it started. So I took, all my experiences with, web design and all that kind of stuff. And it was pretty easy, getting that whole technical side of it done and up. And it was just, finding my way on a logo. This was a whole new thing. It was stretching me creatively. And that's why part of the reason why I did it, I always push myself to be better and to learn more. So learning the whole process of how would it, finding a host and all this kind of stuff, and, finding an artist to help you, come up with a logo, and all that kind of stuff was, all stuff that was very challenging to learn. And like I said, I got help from a ton of people. I launched the show in August of 2006. I think it was on my birthday is when I actually released the episode. I recorded it a few days before. My birthday is August 11th. And I think I released the episode. I recorded it maybe a few days before, but I released it on my birthday. I just thought, whatever. It'd be easy for me to remember the anniversary date. That was my thought why I released it on my birthday. Is that I was like, it will be easy for me to remember the anniversary of the show because it would be the same on my birthday. So it'd be hard to forget that way, and it'd be easy to keep track of. So that was kind of my whole master plan on that. And I did it, and it was rough around the edges, and sometimes I still think it's rough around the edges. All these episodes later, excuse me, but the one thing that fueled me in doing it is just that I love the comic book industry. I always have. Like I said, my older cousins got me into comics when I was a really young kid by just handing me their old comics. They didn't bag and board comics. They just had humongous shelves of just, comics they had just out. And when some got beat up too much and to make room for their new stuff, they would just hand me down their old comics. And, first thing I ever read was a comic. As a kid, I learned how to read using comics because I had always had a ton of them because they just would, anytime they would see me, they would bring me loads and loads of their old hand-me-down comics. And I just always, like I said, from a very young age, I've just always been fascinated with the medium. Just from that and through all the help, it launched. I've had, like I said, throughout the years, I've had different hiatuses from the show, most of the time surrounding, catastrophic events in my life. I went through a lot. My aunt, I think my aunt was the first person I lost when I was doing the show. It was tough. I don't think I took much of a break when she passed away. She was the one that really motivated me to do the podcast thing. I was spending a lot of time with her in and around that time, and she was like, "Don't be scared, just do it. You'll always regret it if you don't try it." And it's like, you got a point. And, so she was a big motivator to me at the time. But like I said, I was extremely close to her. She was like my second mother. And her name was Beulah Bronner. And, she pushed me a ton to convince me, I could do it. And even if I fail, it'll still be okay. The world won't come to an end if I fail in doing it. At least I would have tried it to have the experience of going through it. And that was kind of the thing that rode through the back of my mind. And I might have been a year or so into the show when I lost her, and that was tough because, again, she was probably at that time next to my first wife. She was they were the two closest people to me around that point in time in my life. I was very cut off from the rest of my family. We were very dysfunctional. I went years where I didn't talk to, parts of my family. And, she was close. So when I lost her, it was like a hit. You guys were awesome. you guys that listen, were awesome and sent a lot of well wishes and a lot of emails, and it kept motivating me to do it, because I always needed an outlet, no matter how bad things could go in life. For me, creating always kind of balances it out and kind of brings me back to my center. So that's why I continue to do the show. I've talked about it here and there. Like, I'm not where I once was financially and all that kind of stuff, just due to onset of, health issues, a lot of stress that went on through family, with me losing my dad, a lot of stuff. I'm not going to get too deep into it because it doesn't relate to the topic at hand, but, I'm not where I once was, but the one thing that keeps me going is producing the show, because again, creating always kind of levels me out and help me keeps my center. So I continue to do it. It's not as easy to do it as it was once before, but I still continue to do it because I love it, and I love doing it for you guys. No matter how many people listen or, feedback, I still do it because I still love doing it. And I know for the people that are out there that I do hear from, that they enjoy what I do. At any point that it doesn't, or, I can't ever foresee myself falling out of love with comics, but I'll stop doing it. But I contemplated that, at times when I went through these tough times, but hearing from you guys always pulled me through it, and, it just kept me motivated to keep producing. So I have, again, like I said, so that was a big hit, and I took, it was rough. And then, some years later, not even a couple of years, maybe a month or maybe a year or so, within a year or two, I had a situation with my first wife. Some infidelity happened, kind of caught me off guard. We separated, then divorced. That was a really tough time because she was my high school sweetheart. We had been together 14, 15 years or whatever at that point. That was tough. That was a tough one. And that really derailed the show for a while, because, when you're with someone and you expect to be with them, for the rest of your life, and then things happen and it doesn't turn out that way, you're not prepared to see what happened to you. It kind of throws you for a loop, and we all been through things like that in life. And so that was a major setback, and that derailed the show, because the show was going extremely well at the time. And, my whole life got upended. And the show, it took a while. It took a while for me because I didn't know how to handle it. As a person that, when you get portrayed by a person you trust fully, like, it does something to you. And the show was going well, and it was, I feel like I never kind of recovered. I've gotten back, but where the audience was, the engagement I was getting, like, that hiatus and what I went through, that was a really dark time. I did some things on the show that I regretted my behavior, like, during that time. I shouldn't have been doing the show. I try to put out episodes. The content I did during that time was just, like, all over the place. I was belligerent at points. I was just like, it was a bad time. It was a bad time. And the one cool thing was I helped a lot of you guys that were listeners of the show start shows. I started doing producing, and I started doing mentoring for people that listen to the show, and, like, how can I do what you do? And, I've always been willing to help people that wanted to, try to do their own thing. So, I started producing and putting out other shows on my feed to keep the show and going, and I would sprinkle in an episode here and there, and that went on for years. That went on for like about 2 years, because that separation and whole thing, that was huge. That, like I said, I had a lot going on and a lot in the works that derailed with the show. That just went sideways, and then I lost my dad. 5. Yeah, this year was 5 years. No, my bad. 6 years. It's been 6 years. It was 6 years. Yeah, that was tough. That was tough because he was next to my wife and my best friend. Shout out to Jason De La Cruz, Patreon supporter. First, only Patreon supporter. My boy Jason De La Cruz is out in Chicago. They're probably like the three people that are closest to me. And to lose him and the way I lost him, and, I talked to him one day, 2 days later, I found his dead body. And that set me back a while. At a point, I didn't leave my house for like 6 months. Like, depression hit me like super hard. That is not the most upbeat thing to talk about on a comic book podcast, I know. But I'm just telling you guys my journey because, it's not easy, at times. And I love what I do, and I love entertaining you guys and providing you guys with information. But I thought, again, just telling you some of the things that I went through and what you guys mean to me, because I got through those things through you guys. By doing the show, it helped me through those things. But yeah, it was a point where I literally didn't leave my house for like 6 months after my dad died. That was like, you never in your wildest imaginations ever hope to find a parent. I think a parent or a child. You would never want to find your parent or a child dead. And I did. That messed with me for a while. It still haunts me at times now. I have to admit, I'm in a way better place. But, that was tough. That was definitely tough. And now the outpouring I got from you guys, I have to say, like, I probably would have lost my mind if it wasn't for my wife, Jason, and you guys. I would have really lost it. I really would have lost it. If I didn't have the combination of the three support systems I had in my life, I probably wouldn't be here right now. That's how dark it was and how bad it was. Like, it was crazy. But you guys supported me. You guys take all the time you need. It set me back, but then it rejuvenated me in a way that I knew you guys were there. So I wanted to give you guys content, and I kind of went full blast because coming out of that kind of darkness, I was doing Comic Book Savant. My wife was supporting me a ton. Just being the supportive person she always is. And I was doing that. I was still doing my other podcast I was doing at the time, Pop Media Savant, and then I even launched into doing Simple to Savant. I was doing 3 podcasts a week. I wasn't just doing comic books. I was doing tech, movies. I was doing it all. I was rolling, and it was just I had all this abundance of this, but could have been negative energy that I just poured into a creative side, and I pushed through. Other people that I just want to give a shout out to, I talked about Ed a couple episodes ago. Ed Moore, first listener I ever met in person, way back at Comic Geek Speak, their 30 episode meetup. I met him. We've been friends ever since. He's been a great supporter of the show. Mike Meyers, he was a part of the Cult of Anubis that has spun out and done tons of podcasts since then. Part of the Deliberate Noise Network over under Derek. He does Geek Brunch. He does a ton of shows. He does a DC related. He does a ton of podcasts. I got links already in the link section on the website, so you can find Ed's and Mike's links to their stuff. Also, Derek, I have links to his stuff as well. Again, Comic Book Noise, proprietor of the Deliberate Noise Network, where you can find Ed and Mike shows over on his network. Another very, very supportive, listener over the years has been Matthew Guy. Matthew's been rocking with me from the beginning. He's another one of the old heads that back in the day, that has been a great supporter of the show, and a good friend. Also, my boy Heath Holland. I was talking about him just a couple episodes ago. I was talking about him and Ed. I have links to his stuff on the site as well. Also want to give a shout out to my boy Tyler Hoffman. He's part of my gaming group that I have, TDB. as a gaming group that I have with my friends, because I'm a big video game head. I'm talking more about games, recently comic book related games, because they've been getting so much better. I did an episode talking about comic book games recently on the YouTube channel, so check that out. Tyler's a part of my gaming group. He's a supporter. He's a comic book head. He's a part of my Injustice 2 guild. Also, one of my homeboys, David Beasler, he's like a little brother of mine up in East Haven, Connecticut. He's recently supported the show. He couldn't do the Patreon, so he used I also have a link on the PayPal link, and he just donated $10 to the show. I appreciate him. He's not so much of a comics head. He's mainly into anime, but I've known him for a couple of years. I met him through starting me and my boy Jason starting our gamer group, TDB, and we found him through my boy TJ Tunnington is a longtime listener and supporter of the show. They were friends, and I met him through him, and he's become just like a little brother to me. And he helped support the show. He donated some money to the show. He's like, just give me a shout out on the show. Well, Bees, said I was going to do it. I did it. You got your shout out. And so many countless others. Like I said, there's been so many different people. I talked about this briefly. Jake Danzing, he left a review on iTunes, and then he also sent me a message through Facebook, and we chatted a little bit. Mad props to you, Jake. I appreciate all the kind words you said. It means a lot. Really, really, awesome stuff. Like I said, you guys has to realize you have power in this. I don't want to just do this one-sided. I like things to be a collaboration. So that's why I ask for audience engagement. If you have a moment, if you go whatever platform, that's why I try to be on as many platforms as possible. That's why I'm on Twitter. If you message me, I will, as soon as I see it, I will respond to it. If it's through the website, if you email me, excuse me, I will respond to it. If it's through YouTube and it's not a spammy comment that I'll be getting every time I post a YouTube video, I will respond to it. The Facebook page is there. Send me a message. Anyone that has messaged me, I have responded to it. As soon as I see it, I respond. I set up the Facebook discussion group as well. I have links to all this stuff on the website. If you look at the navigation bar at the top, you'll see links to all this. Facebook group, Facebook discussion group, Patreon. Like I said, if you want to contribute, Patreon is kind of like if you want to support a show. And, this is the thing. Like I said, financially, I'm not where I once was. So certain things are harder for me to do in relation to the show. I don't try to force it on you guys. I put it out there if you want to support the show. Patreon is a platform that allows listeners of a show or artist or whatever. For me, I'm a podcaster. If you want to support, you like the content and you want to support it, you can go there and pledge monthly. You can cancel it at any time you want to. It just goes into supporting the content that you like. When I do mention Patreon, like I said, $1 a month. That's all I ask. If you can spare $1 a month to help support the show, that's all I need. I have different reward tiers set up that I set up for you guys. Like after I get, like I said, my boy Jason started, as soon as I started the Patreon years and years ago, he's pledged in. He's been a contributor ever since. Bees, like I said, he couldn't do the Patreon thing because it wouldn't jive with his PayPal account or whatever. So he just PayPal'd me. He just used the PayPal Comic Book Savant link that's on the page and just sent $10 over. You could do something like that, or you could sign up for the long-term thing. Either or, it goes back into the show. It helps me keep the show going because it costs. Unfortunately, it's free. It's free content, but it does cost to produce said content. There's more stuff that I want to do, more equipment that I want to upgrade in the studio for the videos and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it does cost. So if you guys can spare $1 a month, go to patreon.com/comic book savant. It's patreon.com/comic book savant, all one word. And you can contribute there. Like I said, it's a PayPal link there as well. If you can't do that, you can always leave iTunes reviews, send messages, just drop me a line or shoot me an email. Just let me know that you're out there, you're listening, what you like. Make suggestions. If it's something that you guys want me to cover on the show, I will cover it if I know it's something that you guys want to listen to. So if you have suggestions or if you have feedback, all of it, I appreciate. That's why I'm on so many platforms for you guys to be able to reach out to me. I want it to be, mutual, experience on both sides, and that you feel like you're putting into the experience. I want you to feel a part of it. Cause that's what it started at the core. It was us collaborating together. Talking about collaborations, that was a good segue. Just want to give a shout out to some podcasts that I appeared on, that I did stuff with over the years. Of course, I've had close ties to Comic Geek Speak. Again, Derek and all the guys, Ed, Mike. I've done stuff with Mike on Geek Brunch. Again, Derek is a good mentor and a good friend. Check out Comic Book Noise. I did collabs with Raging Bullets. They're a DC Comics fan podcast. Comic Timing with Ian Levinstein and Brett Cassina. So I've done a lot of little different things along the way. Some other shows, like I said, I've done collabs with that are no longer around. These shows are all still around. I'll have links to all of them in the show notes as well as all the social media stuff. All that is on the website. Anything related to the show that you want to find out about, how to support the show, how to leave, like I said, comments and all that kind of stuff. You can leave comments on the episodes, even on the website and for the posting. Everything that I post, regardless of where you might get the content from, you can go to the website and make comments, on it. I post everything there. All the YouTube stuff goes on the comicbooksavant.com. All the episode stuff goes there. As if more people support on Patreon, I do have things that will unlock after a certain number of supporters, where I'll do specific only Patreon content. It's like I said, if you go to the Patreon page, you'll see, but that's for the people that want that and they contribute to unlock those things. At the base level right now, if you do the $1 a month, it's, I have a Patreon or supporter page that you'll get listed on that. It's more things to come and unlock that I have there. I don't have it pulled up to go through everything, but it's different tiers. But when I get to the higher tiers, it's where I will do a Patreon specific, extra episode of content. You can do Google. I'm going to have it where if have a certain number of Patrons, it'll unlock. I'll do a monthly Google Hangout where I can you guys, if you want to sit and talk to me and we talk about where the direction of the show is going, or you have suggestions, you can have that. It will be a Google Hangout put together where we all can collaborate on that together. Where I see the show going in the future is just forward. I just have been working real hard in the past year, and last summer was a lot. It was a little tumultuous, and I, during the summer I didn't do episodes, and I strove hard, regardless of what was going on personally, to keep pushing through and make sure that I kept getting the episodes out for you guys, because you guys shouldn't have to suffer for little stuff that I have going on. I should be able to power through it, and I have been. So the show's been more consistent over this past year. I'm thankful to that, and I want to push forward. I want to do more, bigger, and better content. I want to get back on the convention circuit. That's where the support, plea comes from what I want to do. I want to get back out so I can meet you guys. That was some of the best times that I had, where I was out at the conventions and I got to meet you fellow, listeners, and to see you face to face and shake hands with you, hug you, things like that. So that's where I ask for those things. And again, I over the years and currently I can't do it as much as I used to, but I support others that I follow, any way I can as well. It's like, you got to put some skin in the game. If you want it to get better, you want it to continue to improve, you gotta have some skin in the game. So, you gotta put up or shut up sometime. So, if you can help support, like I said, it's just going to help the show get even better. That is definitely my hopes and my prayers. Like I said, I want to get back out there in the convention circuit to do a couple of shows so I could, meet you guys and improve the video for sure, and so forth. Like I said, maybe do some merch again. It's been quite a few years since I last had a comic book Savant T-shirt. They did well last time I did that. So I might be looking into doing that again. You guys let me know what you guys think about it. Again, you can email me through the website, or you can always email me just at comicbooksavant@gmail.com and just reach out. What do you guys think? You want another T-shirt? Let me know. But that's all I have for you guys this week. Again, I thank you guys all for all the love and support that you've given me over 11 years. Let's go for 11 more, if that is at all possible, of the show. Like I said, I can't stop. I won't stop. I can't stop because I love what I do, and it's all because of you guys. I will see you guys next week for another episode of Comic Book Savant. You have a good week, and you take care. And I love you guys. Y'all have a good one. Bye.
And into lyrical wholeness, and I know